He swore he would never love again. At 32, raising his 7-year-old daughter alone, Evan Carter had built his life like a fortress. No room for women, no room for hope, no room for one more broken heart. But one quiet afternoon, a single cup of coffee, a woman with a smile as sharp as a blade, and every wall he spent 7 years building started to crack. What happens when a shattered father meets the one woman who refuses to let him keep running? Stay with me until the end. Hit like and comment the city you're watching from so I can see how far my story has traveled. The coffee was already cold by the time Evan Carter finally looked up from his phone. He hadn't meant to let it sit that long. He had meant to drink it, pay the tab, and be out the door by 3:45 so he could pick up Lily from school at 4 sharp. That was the plan. Evan always had a plan. Plans were how he kept the days from collapsing on top of him, how he kept the calendar square and the bills paid and the lunchbox packed with the right kind of crackers. The round ones, not the square ones, because Lily had decided 2 months ago that square crackers were for boys. He had nodded when she told him that, because at 7 years old she was allowed to believe ridiculous things, and because correcting her felt like more work than buying a different brand. But the man across from him was still talking, and Evan had lost the thread somewhere around the third mention of a golf course. So I told him, look, if we don't lock this in by Friday, we're both going to be eating it at the quarterly. You hearing me, Carter? I'm hearing you, Doug. You don't look like you're hearing me. I'm hearing you. Doug Hollister leaned back in the booth, the leather squeaking under his weight, and tapped 2 thick fingers against the rim of his own mug. Doug was the kind of man who ordered black coffee and then poured 4 creamers into it and called that black. He was also Evan's oldest friend, which was the only reason Evan was sitting across from him on a Tuesday afternoon instead of at his desk finishing the Harlow file. You look like hell, man. Thanks. I'm serious. When was the last time you slept? Last night. For how long? Evan didn't answer. He picked up the coffee, took a sip, put it down again. It tasted the way cold coffee always tastes, like regret and burnt paper. Doug sighed. Look, I'm not going to do the thing. Good. But I'm going to do the thing. Doug, you're 32 years old, Ev. 32. You get up, you take her to school, you go to work, you pick her up, you make her dinner, she goes to bed, you work some more, you pass out on the couch, you wake up, you do it again. That's it. That's the whole movie. It's not a movie. It's my life. It's a rerun is what it is. Evan exhaled slowly through his nose. He had the urge, briefly, to get up and walk out. Not because he was angry. He wasn't, not really. But because leaving was the cleanest thing he knew how to do. Leaving a conversation. Leaving a table. Leaving a feeling before it got its hooks into him. He'd gotten very good at it over the last 4 years. Instead, he said, is there a point coming, or is this just the preview? The point is my cousin. No. You didn't even let me finish. I don't need to let you finish. The answer's no. Her name is Mia. Still no. She's 27, she's smart, she's funny, she doesn't have any kids or any psycho exes or any weird stuff on her credit report. I checked. You checked her credit report? I checked what a normal person would check. Ev, come on. 1 coffee. That's all I'm asking. 1 coffee with a human woman who is not your mother, your assistant, or a teacher at Lily's school. I like Mrs. Patterson. Mrs. Patterson is 64. She's a good woman. Doug stared at him. That's what I'm talking about. That right there. That's the thing I'm worried about. Evan almost laughed. Almost. It was the closest he'd come in a while, and it surprised him enough that he had to look down at the table. There was a ring of water where his glass had been sweating. He traced it with his thumb. 1 coffee, Doug said again. Softer this time. Just to prove you still know how. If it's terrible, you blame me. If it's weird, you blame me. If you don't say a single word the whole time and she thinks you're a serial killer, you blame me. You're really selling this. I'm setting realistic expectations. Evan was quiet for a long moment. Outside the window of the cafe, a woman was trying to parallel park a silver SUV and failing badly at it. She backed up, pulled forward, backed up, pulled forward. Each time she got a little closer to the curb and a little farther from the car behind her. Evan watched her without really watching her. He was thinking about Lily, about the drawing she had brought home last Thursday, a stick figure of herself with a crown, and next to her, a stick figure of him. No crown, just a tie and a frown. She had labeled him Dad, and she had labeled herself Princess Lily, and in between them she had drawn a big question mark with a little heart on top of it. He had asked her what the question mark meant. She had shrugged and said, "I didn't know what to put." He hadn't slept well that night. "Fine," Evan said. Doug blinked. "Fine what?" "One coffee." "Wait, seriously?" "Don't make it weird." "I'm not making it weird. You're making it weird. You said yes, that's weird. You never say yes." "Doug." Okay, one coffee. I'll text you her number tonight. You text her. You don't wait 3 days like some kind of psychopath. You text her tomorrow. You pick a place that isn't this place because this place is depressing, and you... Doug. What? Pick up the check. Doug grinned. Absolutely not. Bum. Lily was waiting for him on the concrete bench outside the school with her backpack on her lap and her feet swinging 6 inches above the ground. She was the last kid out. She was always the last kid out. Not because her teacher held her back, but because Lily took her time with things. She packed her crayons slowly. She double-checked her cubby. She said goodbye to the class hamster by name. Evan had learned not to rush her. Rushing her was how you ended up with meltdowns on the sidewalk. She saw his car, and her whole face changed. It was the same thing it did every afternoon, and every afternoon it hit him in the same place, somewhere behind the sternum, somewhere he had stopped naming years ago. "Dad!" "Hey, Lil." She threw the backpack into the back seat and climbed in after it, and he waited until he heard the click of the seatbelt before he pulled away from the curb. "How was school?" "Good." "What did you do?" "Stuff." "What kind of stuff?" "School stuff." "You're a very informative child, you know that?" "Thank you." He glanced at her in the rear view. She had a smudge of something green on her cheek, marker, probably, or paint, or, knowing Lily, some combination of the two plus a little bit of applesauce. "Dad?" "Yeah." "Emma said her mom is taking her to the aquarium on Saturday." "That's nice." "Can we go to the aquarium on Saturday? We went to the aquarium 3 weeks ago." "I know." "You cried because the octopus looked sad." "The octopus did look sad." "The octopus was fine." "You don't know that, Dad. You're not an octopus." He bit the inside of his cheek to keep from laughing. She had a way of saying things like they'd been peer-reviewed, like the moment she said them, they became law. "We can go somewhere on Saturday," he said. "Not the aquarium, somewhere else." "The park?" "Sure." "The one with the ducks or the one with the slide that goes really fast?" "Your choice." "The ducks." "Ducks it is." She was quiet for a minute. He thought the conversation was over. Then, from the back seat, very small, "Dad?" "Yeah, baby." "Am I going to have a mom?" He didn't answer right away. He couldn't. The light ahead of him turned yellow and then red, and he came to a stop at it, and he kept both hands on the wheel, and he waited. "Why are you asking me that, Lil?" "Emma said everybody has a mom. Even if you don't live with her, you still have one. She said I have one somewhere." "Emma is right about that part." "You do." "But where?" "I don't know exactly. Out in the world?" "Why doesn't she live with us?" "Because grown-ups sometimes decide to live in different houses. It doesn't have anything to do with you." "Did she decide, or did you decide?" The light turned green. He took his foot off the brake. He turned onto Mercer and drove for another block before he trusted his voice. "We both decided, sweetheart. It was a long time ago. Before you were big enough to remember." "Oh." He watched her in the mirror. She was looking out the window at nothing. "Dad?" "Yeah." "I don't need a mom. I have you." And there it was, the thing behind the sternum, the nameless thing. "I know, baby," he said. His voice came out quieter than he meant it to. "I know you don't. But it's okay if you want one someday. That's okay too." She didn't answer. She had found something more interesting on the side of the road. A man walking a dog that was almost as big as the man. And Lily had a policy of giving all her attention to very large dogs. The conversation was over, just like that. The way conversations with 7-year-olds always were. They dropped bombs, and then they got distracted by a Labrador. Evan drove the rest of the way home with his jaw tight. That night, after Lily was asleep, and after the dishes were done, and after he had stood in the kitchen for longer than was strictly necessary, just standing there with his hands on the counter, Evan sat down at the small desk in the corner of the living room and looked at his phone. Doug had texted him the number, as promised. Mia B, he'd written, with a thumbs-up emoji and then, for some reason, a taco. Evan typed out a message. Hi, Mia. This is Evan Carter, Doug's friend. He said I should reach out. He read it back. He deleted it. Hi, Mia. Evan here. Doug gave me your number. Too short. Hi, this is Evan. I'm Doug Hollister's friend. He mentioned he told you about me. I'm not sure what he told you, honestly, but I wanted to say hello and see if you'd like to get coffee sometime. Too long. Too formal. He sounded like a man applying for a mortgage. He sat there for a full minute with his thumbs hovering. He thought about putting the phone down. He thought about deleting the whole thread and telling Doug in the morning that it wasn't going to work out. He thought about Lily in the back seat, looking out the window at a very large dog. He typed, Hi, this is Evan. Doug passed along your number. I'm terrible at this kind of text, so I'll just ask, coffee this week? He sent it before he could talk himself out of it. The phone buzzed less than a minute later. Oh, thank God. A normal opener. I was fully expecting a paragraph. Tomorrow, 2 p.m. Ridley's on Ashbury. I'm the one with the bad attitude. He stared at the screen. He read it 3 times. The bad attitude part made something in his chest move in a direction he was not prepared for. He typed back, I'll bring low expectations. Her response came in seconds. Now you're getting it. He set the phone face down on the desk. He sat there for another long moment, listening to the house. The refrigerator humming, the radiator ticking, Lily's white noise machine through the wall, the soft, staticky wash of fake rain. He hadn't felt nervous about a woman in 4 years. He had forgotten it was a feeling you could have. He had filed it away with all the other feelings that belonged to a version of him that no longer existed. The version with a wedding ring and a shared Netflix account and a wife who still laughed at his jokes. That Evan was gone. That Evan had been unmade, one hallway conversation at a time. Across the last 6 months of a marriage he hadn't realized was already over. He didn't like feeling nervous. He didn't like feeling anything that sharp. He got up and went to bed. Ridley's was the kind of cafe that tried very hard to look like it hadn't tried at all. Exposed brick, mismatched chairs, a chalkboard menu with the drinks written in 3 different handwriting styles, at least one of which belonged to someone who had clearly given up halfway through. Evan got there at 1:53. He had deliberately chosen to arrive 7 minutes early because he had not wanted to arrive 13 minutes early, which had been his first instinct. He sat at a table near the window, and he tried to look like a man who was comfortable. She walked in at 2:04. He knew it was her before she reached him. Not because he recognized her. Doug hadn't sent a picture, and Evan hadn't looked her up, because looking someone up felt like a thing you did on purpose, and he had been trying not to do anything on purpose, but because of the way she moved. Quick, direct. A woman who walked into rooms the way other people walked into their own kitchens. She scanned the cafe, spotted him, and came over without hesitating. Evan. Mia. You're earlier than I was expecting. Is that a problem? Nope. Just noting it. She sat down across from him and pulled her coat off in one motion and draped it over the back of the chair, and when she was settled, she looked at him the way you look at a new recipe you're deciding whether to try. Not rudely, just honestly. She was not what he had expected. He hadn't known what he had expected. He had tried very hard not to expect anything. But whatever vague shape had been sitting in the back of his mind, it hadn't been her. She had dark hair pulled back with a tortoiseshell clip, and one piece of it was escaping near her ear, and she didn't seem to notice or care. She was wearing a dark green sweater that looked like it had been washed approximately 900 times. No makeup that he could see. A small scar on her upper lip that pulled slightly to the left when she talked. So, she said. Doug. He's a menace. He's a menace. He told me you were, and I quote, the most reliable guy I know, which I realize makes him sound boring, but he isn't. He's just tired. Evan laughed. He actually laughed, a short one, more of a breath than a sound, but it surprised him enough that he caught it in his chest. That's the nicest thing he's ever said about me. I figured. A waiter came by. She ordered a flat white without looking at the menu. Evan ordered a drip coffee, black, because he had decided on the walk over that he was going to drink it all this time. No cold coffee, no sitting with it, just drink the coffee like a person. When the waiter left, she folded her arms on the table and leaned forward slightly. Okay, ground rules. Ground rules? For this coffee, I like to know what I'm in for. Sure. 1. I'm not going to pretend I don't know you have a kid. Doug told me. I think kids are great. We can talk about her as much or as little as you want, but I'm not going to act weird about it. Okay? 2. If this is awful, we both get to say it's awful. No polite lying. We just end it and go about our days. Okay? 3. She paused. I don't actually have a third one. I just wanted to sound more organized. He did laugh this time. A real one. It cracked out of him like something breaking loose. Noted, he said. Your turn. I don't have ground rules. Everyone has ground rules. You just haven't named yours. He thought about it. He looked down at the ring of condensation where his water glass had been sitting, the same kind of ring he'd traced yesterday with Doug. He wondered, briefly, if his life was just a series of water rings on tables. Okay, he said. 1. I'm out of practice at this. I don't know what this is supposed to look like, so if I say something weird, it's not because I'm a weird guy, it's because I'm a rusty one. Fair. 2. I have to be home by 6:15, sitter. Noted. 3. He hesitated. 3. I haven't done this since my daughter was 3 years old. She didn't say anything to that. She just looked at him. Not with pity, which he had been braced for, but with something else. Something that looked like recognition. Like she'd heard a lot of people say the quiet part out loud, and she'd learned to sit with it instead of filling it. Okay, she said finally. Noted. The coffee came. She picked up her mug and held it in both hands, the way a person holds a mug when they're trying to warm their fingers, even though it's not cold in the room. So, Evan Carter, tell me something true. About what? About anything. I don't do small talk well. It makes me want to crawl under the table. That's a ground rule. That's a preference. He thought for a moment. He looked at her. He had the strangest feeling that he was standing at the edge of something, and that the thing was a long way down, and that he could still step back if he wanted to. He could give her a safe answer. He could tell her he worked in insurance, which was true, or that he'd grown up in Vermont, which was also true, or that his favorite movie was Heat, which was a little less true, but was the answer he gave people at parties. He said instead, My daughter asked me yesterday if she was going to have a mom. Mia set down her mug. What did you tell her? I told her she already had one, somewhere. I told her her mother and I, had decided to live in different houses. I told her it didn't have anything to do with her. Did she believe you? I don't know. She got distracted by a dog. Ah, well, yeah. Mia tapped one finger against the side of her mug. Once, twice, not impatient, thinking. That's a hard thing to get asked in a car, she said. It's a hard thing to get asked anywhere. Sure, but especially in a car, you can't leave. You can't even fully turn around. You're just trapped with it. He looked at her. She wasn't trying to be clever. She was just saying the true thing. Yeah, he said. That's exactly what it was. She nodded once and picked up her coffee again. The conversation moved on. She asked him what he did. He told her. She made a face that was not unkind, but was definitely a face. He asked her what she did. She told him she worked in graphic design, mostly freelance, mostly for small magazines and a couple of nonprofits, plus one tech company that she was 90% sure was going to implode by the end of the year and was trying to squeeze as much out of them as she could before it did. What kind of design? He asked. Editorial, mostly. Layouts, covers. The stuff nobody notices unless it's bad. That sounds like insurance. She laughed. It was a good laugh. A surprised one. Not performed. It came up out of her like a hiccup. It kind of is, she said. Except with better fonts. They talked for an hour and 12 minutes. He knew, because he checked the time once, at minute 40, just to see if he was ready to leave, and he wasn't. He didn't check again. She did most of the talking, which he didn't mind. She told him about her sister who was 2 years older and lived in Austin and was, in Mia's words, the family's official adult. She told him about her dog, a beagle named Francis, who was currently on probation for eating a box of crayons. She told him she'd gone to art school in Rhode Island and had briefly, stupidly, tried to be a painter before her student loans caught up with her and she had to get a real job like an adult human. He asked her what she painted. Mostly bad stuff, she said. That's not an answer. It's the honest one. Okay, what kind of bad stuff? She took a breath. She looked at her coffee for a second. It was the first time he'd seen her hesitate, and he realized, watching her, that he liked her better for it. The hesitation made her a real person. Up until then, she had been almost suspiciously quick. Portraits, she said. I painted portraits. Of strangers. I'd find old photos at estate sales and paint the people in them. I never knew their names. I'd just paint their faces. That's not bad stuff. The execution was bad. The idea was okay. Why'd you stop? Because nobody buys a painting of their dead aunt's neighbor, Evan. He smiled. He couldn't help it. I'd buy one, he said. Don't make promises you can't keep. I'm not. I'd buy one. She looked at him for a second. Then she looked away, and something in her face changed, just for a moment, just a flicker, and then she covered it with a sip of coffee. At 6:02, he said he had to go. Sitter, she said. Sitter. Go, get out of here. He stood up. He pulled out his wallet. I got it, she said. You don't have to. I know. I want to. He paused. He looked down at her. She was still sitting. She was looking up at him with an expression he couldn't quite read. Amused, maybe. A little challenging. Thank you, he said. Don't mention it. He didn't move. Evan? Yeah. Are you going to text me, or are you going to do that thing where you tell Doug it was nice but you don't feel a spark? He blinked. I'm going to text you, he said. Good. When? Don't ask me when, that's weird. Just do it when you do it. He nodded. He walked out of the cafe. He got in his car, and he sat there for a full minute with the key in the ignition, and he didn't turn it. He felt like something was wrong with his chest. Not bad wrong, just wrong, different. Like a muscle he hadn't used in a long time had just been asked to do a small job. And it was sore now, the way an old injury is sore when the weather changes. It wasn't a bad feeling. He didn't know what to do with it. He texted her that night. Had a good time. Rusty, but good. She wrote back in 4 minutes. You weren't that rusty. Also, Francis sends his regards. He didn't need anything today. Growth. He read it twice. He smiled at his phone like an idiot. He put the phone down, and he picked it up, and he put it down again. He went to check on Lily before he went to bed. She was sprawled sideways across the mattress with one foot sticking out from under the blanket, and her mouth opened slightly and her hair everywhere. He stood in the doorway for a minute, just watching her breathe. The thing behind his sternum, the nameless thing, was doing something he didn't recognize. He pulled the blanket up over her foot, and he closed the door, and he went to bed. Tick. The second coffee was a week later. The third one was 4 days after that. By the fourth one, he had stopped counting them as coffees and started calling them, in his own head, just seeing Mia, which was not the same thing. Seeing Mia had its own gravity. Seeing Mia meant he checked his phone more than he used to. It meant he picked out a shirt in the morning instead of grabbing whichever one was on top of the pile. It meant that on Tuesday, when Doug called him at work to ask how it was going, Evan had said, "It's going," in a voice that apparently gave away more than he meant to, because Doug had been quiet for a second and then said, low and careful, "Hey man, that's good. That's really good." Evan had not liked how careful Doug had sounded. He had liked even less that he'd understood why. Mia was not the kind of woman who let him hide. That was the thing. That was the whole thing. She wasn't cruel about it, and she wasn't pushy about it, but she noticed. She noticed when he deflected. She noticed when he gave her the version of a story that had been sanded down for public consumption. And when she noticed, she didn't let him get away with it. "You're doing it again," she said one afternoon over a plate of French fries at a diner on Kessler Street. "Doing what?" "The thing where you tell me something real and then you make a joke so I can't hold on to it." He opened his mouth. He closed it. "I don't do that." "You do it constantly." "Name one time." "Just now, 2 minutes ago. You told me your dad was a contractor and you hated working for him in the summers, and then you did the bit about the nail gun and the neighbor's cat. The nail gun bit is funny. The nail gun bit is a shield. He stared at her across the table. She had a French fry in her hand. She wasn't eating it. She was using it for emphasis, which seemed, somehow, like the most Mia thing she had ever done. Okay, he said, finally. Yeah, maybe. Maybe? Yes. Thank you. You're welcome. She ate the French fry. He didn't know how to explain to her later when he was driving home why that conversation had stayed with him. It wasn't that she had caught him. He had been caught by other people before. Friends. His sister. His ex-wife, toward the end, had caught him constantly and had punished him for it in 100 small, cold ways. It wasn't being caught that was new. It was that Mia had caught him and then just kept going. She hadn't made it a thing. She hadn't tried to fix him. She had pointed at it, waited for him to agree, and then she had eaten the French fry and asked him if he'd ever been to Santa Fe. It was disarming in a way he didn't know how to defend against. He thought about it that night, lying in bed, staring at the ceiling. He thought, I don't know what to do with this. He thought, I'm going to get hurt. He thought, and this one came up from somewhere deeper, from a place he hadn't checked in years. But what if I don't? He rolled over. He closed his eyes. He did not sleep well. Lily found out about Mia the way Lily found out about everything, by accident and louder than it needed to be. It was a Saturday. Evan was in the kitchen making pancakes, which he could do reasonably well, as long as nobody asked him to make anything fancier, and Lily was at the kitchen table with a box of markers and a piece of construction paper, drawing something she had informed him was very important and that he was not allowed to look at yet. His phone was on the counter. It buzzed. He glanced at it without picking it up because his hands were covered in batter, and he saw the name MIA flash across the screen. Lily, who had the vision of a small hawk, saw it too. Who's Mia? He didn't answer right away. He finished pouring the pancake. He reached for a towel. A friend of Daddy's. A new friend? Yeah. Like Uncle Doug? He hesitated. Kind of. Is she a girl? Mia is a girl, yeah. Lily considered this. She put the lid on her green marker. She picked up a purple one. She did not look up from her paper. Okay, she said. That was it. That was the whole conversation. Evan stood there with a towel in his hands and a heart rate that was a little higher than it had been 2 minutes ago, waiting for a follow-up question that didn't come. Lily went back to her drawing. She hummed a song under her breath. It was a song he didn't recognize, probably something from school. He flipped the pancake. Later, after breakfast, when Lily was in the living room watching a cartoon about a family of mice who lived in a teapot, Evan sat down at the kitchen table and looked at the drawing she had left behind. It was a picture of 3 people. 2 of them he recognized. Him in a tie. Lily in a crown. Both of them standing on what appeared to be a lumpy green hill. Both of them smiling. The third person was a woman. She had long dark hair. She had a dark green sweater. She was standing on Lily's other side. Lily had not labeled any of them. Evan stared at the drawing for a long time. Then he folded it in half, carefully, the way you'd fold a letter, and he put it in the drawer where he kept the batteries and the takeout menus, and he went to wash the pancake pan. He was not, he told himself, going to make it a thing. He was not going to tell Mia about it. He was not going to let himself think what he was already starting to think, which was that his daughter had drawn a woman she had never met, in a sweater she had never seen, standing exactly where she was supposed to stand. He scrubbed the pan. He scrubbed it until the water ran cold, and then he scrubbed it some more. In the living room, Lily laughed at something on the television, a high, clean sound, a sound he had built his whole life around keeping. He shut the water off. He stood there at the sink with his hands dripping. He looked out the window at the small square of backyard, at the one tree that was already starting to lose its leaves even though it was only September, and he admitted to himself, just for a second, just long enough to feel it and then file it away, that somewhere in the last 3 weeks, without his permission, something had started. He didn't know yet what it was going to cost him. He didn't know yet that 3 months from now, he would be standing at an airport gate in the middle of the night, running on no sleep and bad coffee, trying to find the right words for a woman who had already decided she deserved better than the half of himself he'd been willing to give her. He didn't know any of that. He just knew, standing there at the sink, that his daughter had drawn a third person on that hill, and that he hadn't been able to throw the drawing away. The drawing stayed in the drawer for 11 days. Evan knew it was 11 because he counted, not on purpose. It just happened that every time he reached in for a battery or a takeout menu, his hand brushed the folded edge of the construction paper, and he noticed, and he thought about it, and then he closed the drawer. 11 times. 11 days. He didn't take it out again. He also didn't throw it away. It sat in there like a small unpaid bill. Mia was meanwhile becoming a problem. Not a problem in the way women in Evan's past had been problems. Not dramatic. Not loud. She didn't leave toothbrushes in his bathroom, or ask him where this was going, or send him long text messages at 2 in the morning about feelings. Mia was, if anything, the opposite of those things. She kept a careful distance from his life. She had not asked to meet Lily. She had not asked about his ex-wife. She had not even, as far as he could tell, let herself get too comfortable. The problem was that he was getting too comfortable. He caught it on a Thursday. He was at work, staring at a spreadsheet that had 4 tabs and approximately 900 rows, and his phone lit up on his desk. It was a picture. Mia had sent him a picture of her dog, the beagle, Francis, wearing what appeared to be a tiny raincoat, standing in a puddle outside a bagel shop, looking at the camera with an expression of profound personal betrayal. "He is not happy," the caption said. "I told him raincoats are for grown dogs." He did not agree. Evan laughed. Out loud. In his office. Alone. And then he caught himself laughing, and he put the phone face down on the desk, and he sat there with his hand flat on top of it, and he felt something in his chest go cold. He was laughing at pictures of her dog. He was laughing at them by himself, in the middle of the workday, with his office door closed. This was, he thought, exactly the kind of thing he had promised himself he would not do. That night, after Lily was in bed, he called Doug. "Are you dying?" "What?" "You never call me. You text me like a normal person. If you're calling me, somebody's dying." "Nobody's dying." "Okay. So what?" Evan sat on the edge of the couch. He put his elbows on his knees. The living room was dim except for the lamp in the corner and the blue flicker of the television, which he had left on without the sound. "I think I'm in over my head." Doug was quiet for a second. "With Mia?" "Yeah. How over?" "I don't know." "Over." "Okay." Doug exhaled, slow. "Okay. Walk me through it." "I don't know how to walk you through it. She sent me a picture of her dog today, and I laughed, and I realized I have not laughed like that about anything in 4 years." "That's a good thing, man." "Is it?" "Yes." "Doug." "Yes. It is a good thing. Why are you saying it like it's a bad thing?" Evan rubbed his eyes with the heel of his hand. He could feel a headache building behind his forehead, the kind he got when he hadn't eaten enough and was trying to think too hard at the same time. "Because I don't trust it." "You don't trust what?" "This, her, whatever this is. I don't trust it to stay good." "Nothing stays good, Ev." "That's not a Mia thing. That's a being alive thing." "Thanks. Very comforting." "I'm not trying to comfort you. I'm trying to tell you the truth. You want comfort? Call your mom." "My mom is worse than you." "I know. That's why I said it." Evan almost smiled. Almost. He looked across the living room at the cold fireplace, at the framed picture of Lily on the mantel, the one from her 5th birthday, with frosting on her nose. And he thought, not for the first time, that his life had a very narrow lane, and that he had gotten very used to driving in it. "Doug." "Yeah, she hasn't met Lily." "I know." "She hasn't asked." "I know. But I think I'm going to have to decide soon whether I let her." Doug didn't answer right away. Evan could hear him breathing on the other end of the line. He could hear, faintly, the sound of Doug's television, a sports thing, something with a crowd. "Yeah," Doug said finally. "Yeah, you are. And once I do that, once she meets Lily, it's different. You know it's different. It's different. So I should make sure." "Make sure of what?" "That I'm not just lonely. That this isn't just me grabbing the first warm thing that walked into the room." There was a long pause on the other end. "Ev." "Yeah." Is that what this is? Grabbing a warm thing? He didn't answer. He didn't answer because he didn't know. He didn't answer because the true answer, the one sitting just behind his teeth, was no. And that was what was scaring him. I gotta go, he said. Ev, I gotta go. Lily's got a thing tomorrow. I need to sleep. Okay, brother. Hey, one more thing. What? You can decide it's not right. You can decide you're not ready. That's allowed. But don't decide it because you're scared. Scared is a bad reason to decide anything. Evan sat there with the phone against his ear. He didn't say anything. He nodded, which Doug couldn't see. Okay, he said. Okay. He hung up. He sat on the couch for another 20 minutes without moving. Then he got up, went to the kitchen, pulled open the battery drawer, and looked at the folded piece of construction paper. He didn't take it out. He closed the drawer and went to bed. Mia noticed, because Mia always noticed. They were at her apartment on a Sunday afternoon, the first time he had been there. It was a small one-bedroom above a bakery, which meant the whole place smelled faintly and permanently of yeast, which Mia had informed him she had become nose-blind to, but which he found, honestly, kind of wonderful. She was making tea, which she did badly. She had admitted it up front. I make bad tea, she had said when he came in. I'm warning you. It's either too strong or too weak, and there's no in-between. He had said that was fine. He was standing at her kitchen counter watching her dunk the bag up and down in the mug like she was trying to drown it when she said, without looking at him, "You're quiet today." Am I? Yeah, even for you. Maybe I'm always this quiet and you're just now noticing. No, she said. I've been paying attention. That stopped him. Not the words, the way she said them. Flat, without flirting, without any of the wry edge she usually put on things. Like she was just reporting a fact. I've been paying attention. He felt his shoulders come up, which was a thing they did when he was about to lie. He made himself put them down again. I've been thinking about something. Okay? She didn't turn around. She kept her back to him, working on the tea. He appreciated that more than he expected to. It was easier to say the next thing with her not looking. About whether you should meet my daughter. Her hand paused, just for a second, over the mug. Then she kept going. Okay, she said. That's it? Okay? What do you want me to say, Evan? I don't know. Something. She turned around. She leaned her hip against the counter and crossed her arms. And she looked at him the way she had looked at him on the first day, at Ridley's. Like a recipe she was deciding whether to try. Except now, 4 weeks in, the decision felt different. It felt like she had already tried it and was deciding whether to make it again. Here's what I'm going to say, she said. I'm going to say it's your call. Because it is. She's your kid, and I don't know her, and you don't owe me a meeting. I'm not your girlfriend, Evan. I haven't earned your kid. You haven't earned my kid? That's not a thing I get to unlock by showing up for 4 weeks. He stared at her. That's a really generous way of thinking about it. It's not generous. It's realistic. I've dated guys with kids before. The kids are not a prize. They're a human being. And if I meet her, I'm in her life in some way. And if this doesn't work out, I'm out of her life. And she has to deal with that. So no, not generous, just paying attention. He sat down on one of her kitchen stools. He put his hands flat on the counter. He looked at his hands. Okay. Okay, what? Okay, you're right. I know I'm right. I'm asking what you want to do. I don't know. Take your time. I've been taking my time. I've been taking my time for 4 years. She softened then. Just a little. Not enough to let him off the hook, but enough to let him see that she saw him. She set the mug down on the counter between them. Evan? Yeah. Can I tell you something? Go ahead. I'm not in a hurry. Okay. I'm not. I'm really not. I like you. I like this. I'm not sitting around waiting for you to decide what we are. I have a whole life. I have a dog. I have deadlines. I have a sister who calls me twice a week to complain about her husband. My plate is full. So, whenever you want to figure this out, figure it out. And whenever you don't, don't. That's my offer. He looked up at her. He didn't know what to say. He had been braced for pressure. He had been braced for a speech. He had been braced for the thing he had had with his ex-wife, near the end, where every conversation about the future had felt like a door closing one more inch. This was not that. This was something else. This was a woman handing him a key and telling him she wasn't going to stand there and watch him decide whether to use it. "Thank you," he said, quietly. "Don't thank me. Drink your tea. I warned you it was going to be bad." He drank the tea. It was bad. He drank all of it anyway. She met Lily 10 days later. He had planned it carefully. Not a big thing. Not a sit-down dinner. Not a zoo trip. Those things, he knew from reading too many articles late at night on his phone, were traps. Kids could smell a big event from a mile away. The pressure would crush it. He went with the duck pond. It was Lily's favorite place in the city, which he had told Mia, and Mia had said, "Okay, ducks. I can do ducks." And then, because she was Mia, "Do I need to know anything about the ducks? Like their names or anything?" He had stared at her. Their names. Yeah, sometimes kids name things. The ducks don't have names. Are you sure? Because if your daughter has secretly named a duck Jeffrey and I show up and don't know who Jeffrey is, I'm going to look like an idiot. The ducks don't have names, Mia. If there's a Jeffrey, you're going to feel real bad about this. There was not a Jeffrey. There was, however, a Saturday morning with a sky the color of wet cement and a temperature that was colder than Evan had planned for, and Lily in her red puffy jacket holding a half-empty bag of stale bread crusts, and Evan standing on the edge of the path with his hands in his pockets and his heart trying to climb up his throat. Mia arrived 3 minutes after they did. She walked up with her hands in her coat pockets and a woolen hat pulled down over her ears, and she stopped about 10 feet away and did not come closer, which he thought, later, was maybe the smartest thing anybody had ever done for him. "Hey," she called. "Hey." Lily looked up. She squinted. She looked at Evan. Evan nodded. "Lil, this is my friend Mia. Mia, this is Lily." "Hi, Lily." Lily did not say hi back. Lily looked Mia up and down with the clinical suspicion of a 7-year-old child who had spent her entire life being the only girl her father paid attention to. She gripped her bag of bread harder. She moved half a step closer to Evan's leg. Mia did not move. She did not crouch down. She did not try to be charming. She just stood there and waited. "Are you here for the ducks?" Lily said finally. "I'm here for the ducks," Mia said, "but mostly I'm here to meet you." "Why?" "Because your dad talks about you a lot, and I wanted to know who he was talking about." "Oh." Lily considered this. She looked up at Evan again. He smiled at her. She did not smile back exactly, but she unclenched her bag of bread slightly, which he recognized as progress. "Do you know how to feed ducks?" Lily asked. "I do not." "I can show you." "Okay, I'd like that." They walked to the edge of the pond. Lily did not take Mia's hand. Lily did not take Evan's hand either. Lily walked between them, slightly ahead, like a small, stern chaperone, and she positioned Mia at exactly the place she was supposed to stand, and she handed her 3 pieces of bread, counted out, and she explained at length that you were not supposed to throw the bread at the ducks, but near them, so they could decide whether to eat it themselves, because ducks have feelings too, Mia. "I didn't know that," Mia said. "A lot of people don't. It's a problem." Evan stood back. He watched them. He watched his daughter, in her red puffy jacket, lecture a grown woman about the emotional lives of waterfowl, and he watched Mia nod seriously and ask careful follow-up questions, and he felt a thing in his chest that he did not want to name. They stayed an hour. On the walk back to the car, Lily slipped her hand into Evan's without looking up. She held it tight. She was quiet. She did this sometimes, when she was processing something. She would go quiet for a while, and then she would ask him a question in the car that he hadn't seen coming. He waited for the question. It came on Oak Street, about 4 blocks from home. "Dad?" "Yeah, baby." "Is Mia your girlfriend?" He tightened his grip on the steering wheel. He tried to keep his face still. "What makes you ask that?" "Because Emma said when a man has a friend that's a girl and they go to the duck pond together, that's a girlfriend." Emma is very sure about a lot of things. Emma is usually right. Emma is 7. So am I. He laughed. He couldn't help it. He glanced in the rearview mirror. She was looking out the window. Mia is a person I like spending time with. I don't know what she is yet. I'm still figuring it out. Okay. Is that okay with you? She thought about it for a long time. They passed a school. They passed a gas station. They passed the laundromat with the flickering sign where he had dropped off his comforter once and never gone back to pick it up because he was embarrassed. She feeds ducks wrong, Lily said, but she listens. He exhaled. He hadn't realized he'd been holding his breath. Yeah, he said. She does. Okay. Okay, what? Okay, she can be your friend. He smiled. He reached back with one hand, found her foot where it was sticking out in the back seat, and gave her ankle a quick squeeze. Thank you, baby. You're welcome. And that was that. That was the whole review. He had been braced for interrogation. He had been braced for a small emotional disaster. What he'd gotten was a 7-year-old judge who had ruled in Mia's favor because Mia had listened. He wasn't sure his ex-wife had ever listened to Lily the way Mia had just listened to Lily. He was also not, he told himself, going to think about that. Things changed after the duck pond. Not a lot, not loudly, but things changed. Mia started coming over once a week for dinner. Not more than that, because Lily was still adjusting, and Evan was still adjusting, and he had read somewhere that kids this age needed consistency, and he didn't want to blow up Lily's consistency for someone he wasn't sure about yet. Once a week. Usually Wednesdays. Mia would bring something, a loaf of bread from the bakery downstairs, a plastic container of soup, once a pack of stickers for Lily that had a horse on them, and that Lily had immediately, gravely, named Gerald. Lily did not immediately love her. That was important. Evan had been ready for the Hollywood version, the little girl running into the new woman's arms at the airport, and he had been, honestly, a little relieved when that hadn't happened. What had happened instead was a slow, careful, almost suspicious tolerance. And then, somewhere around week 3, a small, unsolicited moment. Lily had asked Mia to help her tie her shoe. Evan had been in the kitchen. He had heard it through the wall. Mia, can you do my shoe? Sure, Bug, come here. It was the Mia part that had stopped him. Not the shoe, not the tying, the fact that Lily had used her name. He had stood very still in the kitchen with a dish towel in his hand, and he had had to turn on the faucet to cover the sound of himself breathing out. Heat. The other thing that changed was that he started sleeping better. He did not tell Mia this because it was embarrassing, and because he was not the kind of man who announced his sleep patterns to a woman he had been dating for 8 weeks. But it was true. He was sleeping 4-5 hours in a row sometimes, which for him was a lot. He was getting to work less tired. He was snapping at the assistant less. He had even, one morning, caught himself humming in the shower, which was a thing he had not done since, he genuinely could not remember since before, since a life that belonged to somebody else. He was aware in a distant, clinical way that he was happy. He was also aware that being aware of it was the fastest way to ruin it. He tried not to think about it. It was on a Tuesday in late October that the thing happened. He remembered it was Tuesday because Tuesdays were the night Mia usually went to dinner with her sister over video chat. They did it weekly, a standing thing. Mia in her kitchen with a glass of wine and her laptop. Her sister in Austin with a glass of wine and her laptop. The two of them eating the same takeout order from 2 different restaurants and pretending it was the same meal. So he had not been expecting a call from her. He had been on the couch, half watching the news, when his phone had buzzed. Hey! Hey! Her voice was off, not upset, not exactly, tight. What's going on? I got an email. Okay. From the magazine, the one in Chicago, long form, the one I sent the portfolio to like 6 months ago that I told you about, that I wrote off? Yeah. They want to interview me. He waited. He had a feeling about where this was going. He didn't want to rush her. For a staff position, she said. Art director, full-time, salaried. Health insurance, Evan. Actual health insurance, not the thing I pay for out of pocket that doesn't cover anything. Mia, that's huge. It's in Chicago. I know. I'd have to move. I know. A long silence. He could hear her breathing. I don't know what to do, she said. He sat up on the couch. He put one hand over his eyes. Don't decide anything yet. Go to the interview. See what they say. You haven't even met them. Right, okay. Yeah. When's the interview? 2 weeks. They're flying me out. Okay? Okay. Another silence. He could hear her shifting around on her end. He could picture her, almost exactly. Probably on her kitchen floor, back against the cabinets, the beagle somewhere nearby, probably the wine still open on the counter. Evan? Yeah, I don't want to make this a thing. It's already a thing, Mia. I mean, I don't want to I don't want to rush it. I don't want to be the girl who got a job offer and immediately demanded her boyfriend make a decision about the relationship. I hate that girl. You're not that girl. I might be that girl. You're not. Listen, go to the interview. Then we'll figure it out when we know what it actually is. Okay. Okay. Evan. Yeah. Are you are you okay? He was not okay. He said, "I'm fine." He said it too fast. He knew it. She knew it. But she let him have it anyway. She was generous sometimes in ways that made him feel worse than if she'd pushed. "Okay," she said. "I'll call you tomorrow." "Okay." He hung up. He sat on the couch for a long time. The news was still on. A weatherman was pointing at a map with his arm. Evan was not looking at him. He was looking at the drawer in the kitchen. He couldn't see it from the couch, but he knew it was there, and he knew what was in it, and he was thinking about it. The 3 people on the hill. He had gotten used to them. That was the problem. He had gotten used to there being 3. He did not sleep well that night. He did not sleep well the next night either. By the end of the week, he had developed what he could only describe as a second conversation running in the back of his head at all times, at a volume he could not turn down. It said, "She is going to leave." It said, "Of course she is going to leave." It said, "You knew this, you always knew this. You told yourself you weren't going to let this happen, and you let this happen anyway. And now it's going to happen." And another voice, smaller, more tired, from a deeper place. "Or she stays, and then what?" And then what, Evan? You asked a woman to give up a job in Chicago for the privilege of being the stepmother to your 7-year-old. You asked her to build her life around the ruins of yours. What kind of man does that? He was worse at work. He missed a meeting. He forgot Lily's soccer snacks on a Saturday, which he hadn't done in 3 years, and he had to buy orange slices at the gas station and pretend they had been in the car the whole time. Lily had known. Lily had eyed him across the car in a way that reminded him unnervingly of her mother. "Dad?" "Yeah." "Are you sad?" "No, baby." "You look sad." "I'm tired." "Is it because of Mia?" He had almost driven off the road. "What makes you ask that?" "Because when you got sad before, when the other one went away, you looked like this." He did not know what to say to that. He did not know his daughter remembered. He had told himself for 4 years a story in which Lily had been too young. The divorce had happened when she was 3. She had not known, he had told himself. She had not noticed. She had barely known her mother. The woman had left for Portland with a man named Kyle and had established what could charitably be called a minimal presence. A phone call every other month, a package at Christmas, a promise of a visit in the summer that had not, in 4 summers, actually happened. Lily had been fine, Evan had told himself. Lily was fine. Except Lily, at 3 years old, had apparently filed away a picture of what her father looked like when he was sad. And Lily, at 7 years old, had just matched the picture. "Lil," he said, "I'm okay." "Okay." "I promise." "Okay." She did not believe him. He could see that. But she let it go, because at 7 you still let grown-ups have their lies, even when you have started to notice that they are lies. Mia went to Chicago. She was gone 3 days. He did not ask her how the interview went the minute she landed back in town, because he had decided somewhere in those 3 days that he was going to be a grown-up about this. He was going to let her have the thing. He was going to hear her out. He was going to not, under any circumstances, be the man who made her feel bad about an opportunity she had earned. He gave her 24 hours. Then he called her. They met at a restaurant they had been to twice before, a small Italian place on Mercer, the kind with the red checkered tablecloths that were probably fake checkered tablecloths underneath. A laminated piece of cloth pretending to be the real thing. They had joked about that the first time they'd gone there. He remembered it now. He remembered almost everything now. His brain had been doing that all week. cataloging things, filing them away. Like it already knew something was being taken from him, and it was trying to hold on to what it could. She was there when he arrived. She already had a glass of wine. That on its own told him something. Hey. Hey. He sat down. The waiter came. He ordered the same thing he always ordered. The waiter left. Well, Mia said. Well, they offered it to me. He nodded. He had known this, had known it the moment he'd walked in. She would not have ordered the wine otherwise. Mia drank wine when she was celebrating, and Mia drank wine when she was about to deliver news she did not want to deliver, and she had never, as far as he had seen, drunk it for any other reason. Congratulations. Don't. What? I'm congratulating you. That's a great job, Mia. It's what you wanted. Evan? He stopped. She put her glass down. She put her hands flat on the table, on either side of it. She was looking at him very directly, in the way she did. I'm not asking you for a speech, she said. I'm asking you what you think. I'm asking you what you want. And I'm asking you once, and I'm not going to ask you again, because I'm not going to be the woman who makes a man pick her. So, just tell me, what do you want, Evan? He opened his mouth. He was going to say it. He could feel it in his chest, the whole shape of it. The word stay, just the one word. That was all he had to say. That was all it would take. She was looking right at him, and he could say it, and she would hear it, and the conversation would go somewhere different. What came out instead was, I think you should take it. Her face didn't change. That was the thing he remembered later. Her face did not change. Okay, she said. Mia. No, that was the answer to the question. That's fine. Okay. I didn't mean, you said what you meant, Evan. It's okay. Eat your food. The food had not come yet. They sat there in silence for a long moment. He tried to think of what to say. Every sentence he started in his head fell apart before it reached his mouth. He had said the wrong thing. He knew he had said the wrong thing. But he had said it because it was safer. Because if he had said the other thing, the one word, the stay, he would have been promising something he was not sure he could deliver. And he had learned a long time ago that it was better to disappoint someone up front than to fail them slowly. That was the story he was telling himself. Later, a lot later, he would understand that the story was a lie. That he had not said stay because he was afraid. That fear had dressed itself up as fairness, and he had let it. But that was later. Now across the table, Mia picked up her wine. She took a small sip. She set it down. I leave in 3 weeks, she said evenly. Okay. I'd like to say goodbye to Lily, if that's okay. Yeah, of course. Okay. The food came. They ate most of it. They talked about other things. Her sister, his assistant, the beagle, who had apparently chewed through a power cord and somehow not electrocuted himself, which Mia said was proof that the universe loved idiots. Evan laughed when he was supposed to. He could feel his own face doing the work of laughing, but somewhere underneath it, somewhere behind his sternum, the nameless thing had gone very quiet and very still, the way an animal goes still when it thinks something is hunting it. He walked her to her car. He kissed her on the cheek. He did not kiss her on the mouth. She did not ask why. She got in her car and she drove away, and he stood on the sidewalk in the cold with his hands in his pockets, and he watched her taillights go around the corner, and the second voice in the back of his head, the smaller, tireder one, said very clearly, "You just did something you're going to regret." He got in his car. He drove home. Lily was already asleep when he got there. The sitter, a college kid named Hannah, was on the couch doing homework. She left. He locked the door behind her. He stood in the kitchen for a long time. He did not turn on the light. The street lamp outside made everything the color of weak tea. Then he opened the drawer. He took the drawing out. He unfolded it carefully on the counter. The 3 people on the hill. Him, Lily, the woman in the green sweater. He stood there with his hands flat on either side of it, and he looked at it, and he did not cry, because he did not cry. Because he had trained himself years ago not to cry. But his shoulders came up, the way they did when he was about to lie. And this time he did not make them come down again, because there was nobody in the room to lie to. He put the drawing back in the drawer. He closed the drawer. He went to check on Lily. She was sprawled sideways across the bed again, one foot out from under the covers again, hair everywhere, unchanged, untroubled. The whole rest of his life, with all its failures and its loud silences, had not yet reached her, and he stood in her doorway and he tried to be grateful for that. And he mostly was. And he pulled the blanket up over her foot the way he always did. In 3 weeks, he thought, Mia is going to get on a plane, and I am going to let her. He shut Lily's door quietly, and he went down the hall in the dark, and he did not turn on a single light along the way. The next morning, he was already making lunch when Lily came into the kitchen in her socks, hair flat on one side, squinting at the light like she had personally taken offense to it. "Dad?" "Morning, baby. You look weird." "Thanks." "I mean your face." "Still thanks." She climbed onto the stool at the counter. She put her cheek flat on the cool marble and closed her eyes again. He had seen her do this 100 times. It was her way of waking up in installments. "Dad?" "Yeah." "Is Mia coming over Wednesday?" He froze, just for a second. He was spreading peanut butter on a piece of bread. The knife stopped moving. "She is. Yeah. This week she is." "Okay." He waited. He wanted her to say something else because he didn't know yet how he was going to explain the next part. The part where Mia was coming over 3 Wednesdays more, and then not again, and then not ever. He hadn't figured out the words. He wasn't sure the words existed. Lily didn't say anything else. She opened one eye. She pointed at the peanut butter. "Not too much. I don't like when it sticks to my mouth." "Got it." "Also not the crust." "Also got it." He made her lunch. He drove her to school. He went to work. He did not call Mia. He did not text Mia. He put his phone face down on his desk, the way he had the day he had laughed at the picture of her dog. And he told himself he was being respectful. He told himself he was giving her space to process. He told himself a lot of things that week, and none of them were true. And on some level, he knew none of them were true. And he kept telling them to himself anyway because the alternative was to sit with what he had actually done, and he was not ready to do that yet. He would not be ready for a while. The week ran out. The next one started. Mia came over on Wednesday, like she had said she would, and she acted completely normal, which was worse than if she had acted upset. She brought a container of the lentil soup she knew Lily liked. She let Lily show her a drawing of a horse named Winston, who was, according to Lily, the cousin of Gerald the sticker horse, and she asked follow-up questions about Winston with the same seriousness she always had. She helped Lily with her bath. She stayed for the bedtime story, which was new. She had never stayed through the bedtime story before. They had always ended her visits before then. And she sat at the foot of Lily's bed and listened while Evan read from a chapter book about a girl who lived in a lighthouse. And when it was done, Lily said, "Good night, Mia," without Evan having to prompt her. And Mia said, "Good night, Bug." And then she got up and walked out of the room without looking at Evan. She didn't stay for coffee. She said she had work. She kissed him on the cheek at the door. She left. Evan stood at the door for a long time after it closed. He thought, she's saying goodbye in pieces. He thought, she's going to be done saying goodbye before I even figure out how to ask her to stay. He did not ask her to stay. Instead, on Saturday, a thing happened that he was not ready for. Lily had a birthday party to go to. Her friend Natalie, a bowling alley party. The kind where the parents sit in a booth and eat cold pizza and pretend not to be timing out how long until they can reasonably leave. He dropped her off at 11. He was supposed to pick her up at 2. At 12:40, his phone rang. It was Natalie's mom, a woman named Kelsey, who Evan had spoken to maybe 3 times and whose voice he had trouble placing without her being in front of him. "Evan?" "Yeah, hi, Kelsey. Everything's fine, but I think you should come get her." His stomach dropped. "What happened?" She's okay. She's upset. There was a thing. Can you come?" He was in the car in 90 seconds. He broke a speed limit. He broke 2 speed limits. He got to the bowling alley at 1:06, and he pushed through the smoky glass door into the clatter and the neon and the smell of shoe spray, and he scanned the party area, and he saw her. She was sitting on the curb of the little fake plastic sidewalk that ran along the edge of the lanes, alone. Her knees pulled up to her chest, her face red. Kelsey was standing near her, but not too close, giving her room. Kelsey saw Evan and mouthed, "Sorry," and stepped back further. He crossed the room to his daughter. He crouched in front of her. "Hey." "Hi, Dad." "What happened?" She didn't answer. Her chin was doing a thing. He had seen the thing before. The chin thing was her last line of defense before she cried in public, and she did not cry in public if she could help it. She was her father's daughter in that particular way. "Hey, Lil, look at me." She looked at him. "It's okay," he said. "Whatever it is, just tell me what happened." "Oliver. Oliver. Oliver Pratt. From my class." "Okay. What did he do?" "He said." Her chin. Her voice went up half an octave. "He said my family was broken." Evan's hands went cold. "He said what?" He said, we were doing a thing, a game, where you had to say something about your family. And I said, my dad and me live in the blue house, and we have a fish named Kevin. And he said, that's not a real family. That's a broken family because you have to have a mom. And everybody laughed. Lily. And then I said, my mom is in Portland, and he said that doesn't count. He said that doesn't count because she doesn't even call me. Lily. Is that true, Dad? Does it not count? The world went very narrow. He was aware in some peripheral way that the bowling alley was still happening around them. Pins were still falling. A song was still playing. A group of dads in a corner were still laughing about something. All of that was still real. But for Evan, at that moment, the only thing in the entire world was his daughter's face and the question she had just asked, and the way her voice had cracked on the word count. He sat down on the curb next to her. He put his arm around her. He did not care who saw. She leaned into his side the way she had not leaned into his side since she was much smaller, since before she had gotten old enough to pretend she didn't need to, and he felt her small shoulders shaking. Listen to me, he said. Listen to me, Lil. Okay, you have a family. You have me. You have Grandma. You have Uncle Doug, who is not technically your uncle, but he counts. You have a fish named Kevin, who, I will admit, is not a very good fish, but he is a family member. That is a family. That is a real family. But Mom is a person who is in your life the amount she is in your life. She loves you, but she doesn't get to decide whether your family counts. Nobody does. Not Oliver, not Oliver's parents, not anybody. Do you understand me? She nodded against his side. Oliver is a jerk. Oliver is a jerk, yes. Okay. He held her for another minute. She was not crying out loud. She was doing the thing where she cried quietly into the side of his shirt and pretended she wasn't, and he pretended along with her because she had asked him to, in her way, without saying it. Kelsey was hovering. Kelsey, he said, thank you for calling. We're going to go. Of course. Lily, sweetheart, do you want a piece of cake before you leave? We were just about to... Lily shook her head against his chest. Okay, Kelsey said, soft. Okay. No worries. You go home and you come over any time, all right? Any time. Evan nodded. He stood up. Lily held his hand all the way to the car. She did not let go when he opened her door. He had to gently extract his fingers from hers to help her with her seatbelt. He did not say anything on the drive home. He did not know what to say. He kept seeing her face. The word broken. The way she had said the word count, like it was new to her, like she had not known until that morning that things could not count. He thought, I did this. He thought, I made this life for her, and this is what it got her. This is how the world is going to see her. Broken. Not counting. That is what my choices bought her. He was being unfair to himself, and he knew he was being unfair, and he could not stop being unfair. When they got home, he made her a grilled cheese. She ate half of it. She went to her room. She closed the door, which she didn't usually do. He knocked after a while, and she said she was okay and that she wanted to be alone for a bit. And so he let her be alone. And he went into the kitchen, and he stood at the sink, and he put his hands flat on the counter, and he tried to breathe normally and could not quite manage it. Doug came over that night. Evan had not asked him to. He had called Doug about something else, about borrowing a ladder, and halfway through the call, Doug had heard something in his voice and said, I'm coming over. And Evan had said, you don't have to. And Doug had said, I know I don't have to, and hung up. Doug arrived with a pizza. He did not ask what was wrong until Lily was asleep. They were on the back porch. It was colder than either of them had dressed for. Doug had his coat zipped up under his chin. Evan was in just a sweatshirt, and he was shivering slightly. And he had not acknowledged that he was shivering because he did not want to go inside and get a coat, because going inside would mean stopping, and he was afraid that if he stopped, he wouldn't start again. "So," Doug said. "So, talk." Evan talked. He started with the bowling alley. He didn't mean to start there. He meant to start with Mia, with the restaurant, with Chicago, with the wrong sentence. But it came out in the wrong order, the way things come out when you haven't let yourself say them out loud yet. And he told Doug about Oliver Pratt, and the word broken, and Lily's chin, and the fact that she had gone to her room and closed the door. Doug listened. When Evan was done, Doug said, "Okay, first thing. Oliver Pratt is 7. Oliver Pratt's opinion is not evidence." "I know." "I don't think you know. I think you've decided his opinion is evidence." Evan didn't answer. Second thing. Lily is not broken. Lily is the most together small person I have ever met in my life, and I have 2 nieces, and one of them is a lunatic. Lily is fine, Ev. She got told a thing that hurt her. You told her the truth back. That's what parents do. You didn't break her. A kid named Oliver with, I assume, a bowl haircut said something stupid at a bowling alley, and you cannot prevent every Oliver from ever existing. I know. Third thing, Mia. Evan closed his eyes. What did you do, Ev? I told her to take the job. Doug was quiet for a long second. Did you mean it? No. Then why'd you tell her that? Because... He dragged a hand down his face. Because I thought it was the right thing. Because she earned it. Because, look, she's 27, Doug. She's got a whole life. I'm not going to be the guy who asks her to move into a 2-bedroom in the suburbs with a single dad and his 7-year-old and a fish. I'm not going to be that guy. I'm not going to ask her to... She didn't ask you to ask her. What? She didn't ask you to ask her, Ev. You're so busy trying to be a good guy about this that you forgot she's a grown woman and she gets to decide what she wants. You didn't do her a favor. You took the decision away from her. Evan stared at him. That's not... Yeah, it is. It is exactly that. You decided what was fair to her without asking her what she thought fair was. That's not gallantry. That's control. Doug. What? I don't know how to do this. Doug exhaled. His breath made a pale shape in the cold air. He was looking out at the yard, at the one scrawny tree and the trash cans and the neighbor's dog barking somewhere 2 fences over. You know how to do this, Ev. You're just scared. Yeah? Scared is fine. Scared is allowed. What I'm telling you is, don't dress scared up as anything else. Don't call it fair. Don't call it noble. Don't call it for her own good. Call it what it is. Evan didn't answer. He was looking at the same tree. She leaves in 12 days, he said. I know. If I call her right now and I tell her I made a mistake, I don't know if she'll... I know. She might say no. She might. She should say no. She might. They sat for a while longer. The neighbor's dog gave up. An ambulance went by on the next street, far off, its siren thinning as it went. Evan watched his breath come out. Doug, yeah, Lily drew a picture, weeks ago, before she ever met her. She drew the 3 of us on a hill. What? A hill. Me, Lily, a woman in a green sweater. She hadn't met Mia yet. I don't even think she knew Mia existed. She drew her, green sweater and all. Doug was quiet. Where's the drawing? In my kitchen drawer. Why is it in your kitchen drawer? Because I don't know what to do with it. Doug turned his head to look at him. Man, he said, you are the dumbest smart person I know. I know. I'm saying it with love. I know. They didn't talk much after that. Doug went home around 11. He told Evan to think about it. Evan said he would. He did not sleep at all that night. He lay on top of the covers in his clothes, and he looked at the ceiling, and he ran the math 100 different ways, and every version of the math ended up in the same place, which was that Doug was right, and that he had been wrong, and that he had been wrong on purpose, and that he had been wrong on purpose, because being wrong on purpose felt safer than being right and risking it. He did not call Mia the next day. He did not call her the day after either. He meant to. Every hour he meant to. He picked up the phone 8 times and put it down 8 times, and each time he told himself the same lie. That he needed to figure out what to say first, that he needed to get the words right, that it was important to do this correctly because he only had one shot at it. And every hour, underneath the lie, the truth sat there and waited. He was afraid. He was afraid she would say no. He was afraid she would say yes and then change her mind in 6 months. He was afraid that wanting something this much meant he was about to lose it, because that was the pattern of his life. That was what the last 4 years had taught him, that the things you want the most are the things that are being taken away from you before you have even finished asking for them. On the 5th day after the bowling alley, Mia called him. He was at work. He let it ring twice before he answered because his hand was shaking, which annoyed him. Hey. Hey. Her voice was careful, very careful. Is now okay? Yeah, it's okay. I'm gonna say a thing, and I'm not asking you to respond to it right away, so just listen, okay? Okay. He stood up from his desk. He went to the window. He stared down at the parking lot below, at a man loading boxes into a minivan, moving slowly, methodically, the way people move when they don't want to be where they are. I'm moving on the 28th, she said. A week from Sunday. The company's putting me up in a corporate place for the first month while I look for an apartment. I'm telling you because I'm not going to do the thing where I disappear. I'm not going to make you chase me down or figure out my timeline. That's not how I want us to end. If this is how we end. He couldn't speak. And I also want to say, she said, that I'm not angry at you. I want you to know that. I was, for a couple of days. I'm not anymore. You did the best you could with what you had, and I think the thing you had was fear, and that's fine. That's a real thing. I'm not going to punish you for it. Mia, I'm not done. He stopped. I'm not going to ask you to change your mind, she said. I'm not. Because if you're going to change your mind, you have to do it on your own. I learned that from my mother, who spent 30 years asking my father to be different, and he never was because she was the one asking. So I'm not going to ask, okay? Okay. And the last thing. Can I take Lily out for ice cream on Saturday? By myself. I want to say goodbye to her properly. He pressed his forehead against the cold glass of the window. Yeah, he said. Yeah, of course you can. Thank you. Mia. Yeah. He had meant to say it then. He had it. The word, the whole shape of it, rising up in his chest. Stay. One word. Say it. He said, thanks for calling. A pause. Yeah, she said quietly. Of course. She hung up. He stood at the window for a long time. He thought, I'm going to be sick. He was not going to be sick. He was going to do what he always did, which was to be fine, which was to go back to his desk, which was to answer the email that was sitting on his screen, which was to pick Lily up at 4 and make her dinner and read her a chapter of the Lighthouse book and put her to bed. He did all of those things. He did not feel fine. Mia took Lily out on Saturday at 2. Evan was not there. That had been Mia's choice and Lily's request. Lily had gotten very attached to the ice cream plan the minute Evan mentioned it, and she had asked, with a 7-year-old's ruthless clarity, just me and Mia? And Evan had said yes, and Lily had nodded like a woman closing a business deal. They were gone an hour and 40 minutes. Evan spent the hour and 40 minutes pretending to clean the kitchen. He wiped the same spot on the counter 3 times. He reorganized the silverware drawer, which had not needed reorganizing. He opened the battery drawer and looked at the drawing and closed the drawer again. He did not sit down. Sitting down felt like giving up. When he heard Mia's car in the driveway, he went very still in the middle of the kitchen, and he made himself count to 5 before he went to the door. Lily came in first. She had ice cream on her chin. Her eyes were pink, the way eyes are pink when a person has been crying and then stopped and then run their hands over their face too many times trying to hide it. Dad. Hey, baby. Mia got me a balloon. I can see that. She was holding a small mylar balloon shaped like a strawberry. She held it up for his inspection. He admired it appropriately. Go wash your face, he said gently. You're covered in ice cream. Okay. She went. She took the balloon with her. She went slowly. He could hear her feet on the stairs, one step at a time, each one landing a little harder than it needed to. Mia was in the doorway, still in her coat. She had not come inside. He looked at her. "Hi," he said. "Hi. Do you want to come in?" "I probably shouldn't." "Okay." They stood there. The doorway was cold. A leaf blew across the steps behind her and got caught for a second against her boot before skidding on. "She was good," Mia said. "She was a rock star. She told me about Winston. She told me about Kevin the fish. She told me Oliver Pratt is not invited to her next birthday, which I took as a very positive sign." "She told you about Oliver Pratt?" "Oh, yeah." "I didn't know she told anyone." "She told me in a whisper, so you know she meant it." Evan almost laughed. His face did the shape of laughing. No sound came out. "Mia." "Don't, Evan." "I'm not. Please don't. Not on the doorstep. Not after the ice cream. Just don't. Let me leave." He stopped. She looked at him for a moment longer. Her eyes were dry. Her mouth was doing something he couldn't quite read. "I'll call you before I go," she said. "Not to talk about anything, just to say goodbye, so you're not surprised." "Okay. Okay." She turned. She went down the steps. She got in her car. She did not look back. He watched her pull out of the driveway. He watched her car turn left at the corner. He watched the spot where her car had been, even after the car was no longer there. Then he heard from upstairs a thud. It was a small thud. Not a crash. Not a Lily's hurt sound. More like the sound of a 7-year-old falling face first onto her bed on purpose. He closed the door. He went upstairs. Lily was on her bed, face down, still in her coat. The balloon was hovering against her ceiling, bumping gently into the light fixture. The ice cream was still on her chin. "Lil." "I don't want to talk, Dad." "Okay." "I just want to be quiet." "Okay." He sat on the edge of her bed. He did not touch her. He had learned not to touch her when she wanted to be quiet. She was her father's daughter in that particular way, too. They sat like that for a long time. Her back rose and fell. The balloon bumped the ceiling. Somewhere in the house, a pipe ticked. "Dad." "Yeah, baby. Is Mia not going to come to our house anymore?" He was not ready for the question. He tried to think of what to say. He had tried to think of what to say for a week. He had not come up with a good version. He didn't have a good version now. All he had was the true version. "Mia got a really good job in Chicago. She's moving there next Sunday. It's a long way away, so we're not going to see her as much." "Forever?" "I don't know, baby. Probably for a long time." A pause. "Is that because of me?" The floor tilted. He caught the edge of the mattress. "No, Lil. No, not at all. Not even a little bit. Why would you think that?" "Because." Her voice was muffled in the comforter. "Because she said at ice cream that she really loved me. And then she said she was going away. And I thought maybe if I wasn't... Lily. If I wasn't there, maybe... Lily, listen. Listen to me." She turned her head. Just barely. One eye looking at him sideways, squashed against the pillow. "Mia loves you," he said. She said that because it's true, not because she was saying goodbye. Her going away is not your fault. It's not because of you. It has nothing to do with you. Do you understand? Then whose fault is it? He looked at her. He did not lie. He didn't know exactly what made him not lie. He had been lying a lot, quietly, for weeks. But he looked at his daughter with ice cream on her chin and her face smashed into a pillow, and he could not lie. "It's a little bit mine," he said. I think I maybe did the wrong thing." "Oh. Yeah. Can you undo it?" "I don't know, baby." "You should try." He nodded. He couldn't say anything for a minute. He put his hand on her back, between her shoulder blades, and he just rested it there. Her coat was stiff under his palm. "Okay, Lil. You should try, Dad." "Okay." He sat with her until she fell asleep. She fell asleep in her coat. He slid it off her shoulders, one arm at a time, carefully, and he pulled the comforter up over her, and he took the balloon down off the ceiling and tied the string to her bedpost, where she would see it first thing when she woke up. He stood in the doorway and looked at her for a long time. Then he went downstairs and he opened the drawer in the kitchen And he took the drawing out, and this time he did not put it back. He carried it into the living room. He set it down on the coffee table. He sat on the couch and he looked at it, and he did not look at anything else for a long, long time. He could hear the refrigerator. He could hear the radiator. He could hear faintly through Lily's door above him the tiny soft static of her white noise machine. He thought about calling Mia. He picked up his phone. He put it down. He picked it up again. He opened the text thread. The last message in it was from her, from 3 days ago, just the word okay, in response to something he had said about the pickup time for the ice cream outing. A one-word message. That was what the thread had been reduced to. That was what he had done to the thread. He started to type. He stopped. He deleted it. He started to type again. He stopped again. He set the phone down on the table, next to the drawing, and he sat with both of them, and he did not decide anything, not that night. He did not decide anything for 2 more days. He walked around the house like a man waiting for a verdict, except the jury was himself, and the jury was not agreeing with itself, and the courtroom never closed. 7 days until she left. 6 days until she left. 5 days. He kept picking up the phone. He kept putting it down. He kept opening the drawer. Except now the drawing wasn't in it. The drawing was on the coffee table where he could see it from everywhere in the living room, and everywhere in the living room was starting to feel like a place where a decision was supposed to be getting made and wasn't. 4 days. He did not know yet what he was going to do. He did not know yet whether he was going to do anything at all. He only knew that the nameless thing in his chest had stopped being quiet and had started instead to make a sound, low and steady, like a clock counting down to something he had not agreed to, and that the sound was getting louder every hour, and that he could not, no matter how hard he tried, turn it off. 3 days until she left, Lily walked into the living room in her pajamas and stopped in the doorway. "Dad." "Yeah, baby." "Why is that picture on the table?" He looked up from his phone. The drawing was still there, exactly where he had put it 4 nights ago. He hadn't moved it. He hadn't been able to. "I was looking at it." "Why?" "Because you're a good artist." She gave him a look that was too old for her face. She walked across the room in her socks and climbed onto the couch next to him and pulled the drawing toward her. She studied it, frowning, the way she frowned at her homework when she thought the teacher had made a mistake. "That was a long time ago," she said. "A couple months. I drew that before Mia." He nodded slowly. "Before I met her," Lily clarified. "I know, baby." "So how did I know?" "Know what?" She pointed at the woman in the green sweater, at the hill, at the 3 small figures that were supposed to be on it. "How did I know she was going to come?" He didn't have an answer for that. He didn't have an answer for any of it. He sat there on the couch with his 7-year-old and a piece of construction paper, and he felt the last thing inside him, the last thin, resistant thing, the thing that had been saying it's safer this way for 4 years, give out, all at once, like a rope snapping. "Lil." "Yeah. I have to go somewhere." "Now?" "Not right now. Tomorrow maybe, or the day after. I have to go talk to Mia." "About coming back?" "About a lot of things." She thought about this. She put the drawing back down on the table, carefully, in the exact spot it had been in. She smoothed the corner of it with 2 fingers. "Okay," she said. "Good." "Good?" "Yeah, that's the thing you were supposed to try." He let out a breath that was half a laugh and half something else. He pulled her against his side. She came, which was not a guaranteed thing at 7, and she leaned her head against his ribs, and she smelled like cheap strawberry shampoo and peanut butter, and he said, into the top of her hair, "Thank you, Lily." "You're welcome." "For a lot of things." "Okay." They sat there for a while. He didn't say anything else. Neither did she. She was a kid who understood, in a way a lot of adults didn't, when the talking was finished. He did not call Mia that night. He almost did. He picked up the phone 3 times. But something in him, the last stubborn, broken piece of him, told him very clearly that a phone call was not enough, that he had burned the right to a phone call when he had sat in that restaurant and watched her face not change, that if he was going to ask her for anything, he was going to have to ask her to her face, where she could see him, where he could not hide behind the quiet of a line. He went to bed. He did not sleep. At 4:30 in the morning, he gave up and went downstairs and made coffee. He drank it standing at the kitchen window in the dark. The street lamp outside was making everything that same color of weak tea. He thought about the things he wanted to say to her. He thought about the things he had wanted to say to her for weeks. He thought about all the sentences he had started and abandoned, all the lies he had dressed up as fairness, and he thought, if I don't say it right this time, it's over. If I say it wrong, she's gone. And then, underneath that thought, the truer one. If I don't say it at all, she's gone anyway. He put the cup down. Well, he called Doug at 6. Are you dying? No? Then why are you calling me at 6 in the morning, Ev? I need you to watch Lily tomorrow night. There was a pause on the other end, a long one. Evan could hear Doug's wife moving around in the background, a faucet running, a dog barking far away. Tomorrow night, Doug said. Tomorrow night. The night before Mia leaves. Yeah. Ever. Yeah. You're doing it. I'm doing it. Doug didn't say anything for a minute. When he did, his voice was rougher than it had been. What time do you want me? 5. I'll be there at 4:30. Doug? Yeah. Thank you. Don't thank me. Go get your girl. He hung up. The rest of that day was the longest day of Evan's life. He could not work. He sat at his desk and he pretended. He stared at the same email for 40 minutes and he did not read a word of it. He left the office at noon. He drove around for a while, nowhere in particular. He stopped at the duck pond. He stood there in his suit on a Thursday afternoon and looked at the water and the half-frozen mud and the 3 tired ducks, who were still there even though it was late in the year. And he thought about Lily's voice saying, "Ducks have feelings too, Mia," and his throat closed up, and he had to turn around and walk back to the car. He picked up Lily at 4. He told her Uncle Doug was coming to watch her tomorrow night. She said okay. She did not ask why. She was at some level tracking this with him, and she had decided, at some level, not to make it harder than it was. He went to bed at 9. He woke up at 3. He did not sleep again. Mia's flight was Sunday morning. It was Saturday now. She had told him she was driving herself to the airport, which had surprised him, but that was Mia. She did not like goodbyes at gates. She did not like people watching her pull away. She would rather handle it alone. Her apartment was 90% packed by Saturday afternoon, he assumed. Boxes everywhere. The beagle probably stressed out, in a crate somewhere, making that specific beagle noise that was not exactly crying and not exactly barking. He knew where her apartment was. He had been there maybe 6 times. He had never shown up unannounced. That was the thing he kept turning over in his head, driving there on Saturday night with Doug's voice in his head and Lily's drawing on the passenger seat. He had never shown up unannounced. Mia was a woman who liked to be warned. Mia was a woman who had rules about things. Showing up at her door the night before she flew to Chicago, without calling first, without texting first, was exactly the kind of big dumb movie gesture that Mia would have, under other circumstances, mocked him for. He did it anyway. He parked on her street at 6:42. He sat in the car for 2 minutes. He thought, I can still go home. I can still call her. I can still do this differently. He got out of the car. The bakery downstairs was closed for the night, the windows dark, but the whole block still smelled like bread, which was how he knew he was in the right place even before he saw the number on the door. He pressed her buzzer. Nothing. He pressed it again. The speaker crackled. Hello. Her voice. Tired. Flat. It's me. A silence. A long one. He could hear, faintly through the speaker, the beagle barking in the background, short, hard barks, the specific pitch of a dog who has been in a crate too long. Evan. Yeah. What are you doing here? I need to talk to you. I'm packing, Evan. I'm in the middle of... I know. 10 minutes, please. Another silence, longer. Then the door buzzed and he pushed it open, and he climbed the stairs to her apartment with his heart in his throat and the drawing folded in his coat pocket, and he stood in front of her door, and he made himself breathe in and out, and then he knocked. She opened it. She looked wrecked. That was the first thing. She was in sweatpants and an old paint-stained t-shirt, and her hair was up in a clip that was barely holding, and there were cardboard boxes behind her stacked 3 high against the wall, and Frances was going nuts somewhere in the back, and she looked like a woman who had been crying earlier and had decided to stop and had then started working, and who was now very tired and did not want company. Hi, she said. Hi. 10 minutes, Evan. 10 minutes. She stepped back. He came in. He did not take off his coat. He stood just inside the door, and she stood across from him, 6 feet away, next to a stack of boxes marked kitchen in black marker, and the beagle somewhere in the bedroom let out one last bark and then gave up. He opened his mouth. Nothing came out. Evan. Wait, just wait. Give me a second. She gave him a second. He tried again. I came here, he said, because I was going to give you a speech. I had a speech. I've been writing it in my head for a week. I had it all down. It was a really good speech, Mia. I was going to tell you all the ways I was sorry. I was going to tell you why I said what I said at the restaurant. I was going to be articulate. I was going to make a case. Okay. I'm not going to give you the speech. Okay? He took a breath. The speech is a lie, he said. It's a lie because a speech is a thing you write when you're still trying to protect yourself. A speech is the smart version. The smart version is what I've been doing for 4 years. The smart version is what got me here. So I'm not giving you the speech. I'm going to tell you the truth, which is messier, and I haven't practiced it, and I'm probably going to say it wrong. Evan, please let me finish. She closed her mouth. She leaned back against the door frame of the kitchen. She crossed her arms over her chest. Not cold, not hostile, just braced. I'm scared, he said. That's the whole thing. That's all of it. I've been scared this whole time. When I told you to take the job, I wasn't being fair to you. I wasn't being noble. I was being scared, and I dressed it up as being a good guy, because being a good guy is easier than being a man who admits he wants something. I didn't want you to take the job, Mia. I've never wanted you to take the job. I wanted to ask you to stay, and I didn't know how. Because if I asked you to stay and you said no, I didn't know how I was going to live through that. And so I made it so you didn't have a chance to say no, and I called that being fair to you, and it wasn't fair. It was just cowardice. And I'm sorry. She didn't say anything. He kept going. He had to keep going. He was afraid that if he stopped, he wouldn't start again. I'm not a finished person, Mia. I don't have all of this worked out. I have a kid who asks me in the car if she's going to have a mom, and I don't know what to tell her. I have a job I don't love. I have a house with a fish named Kevin in it that I bought because I thought a pet would help. I sleep like garbage. I don't know what I'm doing half the time. I am not the version of me you deserve. I know that. I know that's true. And I'm still going to stand here, and I'm still going to ask you, because I figured out something a week ago, and I've been trying not to know it, and I can't not know it anymore. What did you figure out? That losing you is going to hurt more than having you hurts. She closed her eyes. Evan. I'm not done. I'm sorry. I'm not done. He pulled the drawing out of his coat pocket. He unfolded it. He held it up. My daughter drew this before she met you, before she knew your name. 3 people on a hill. Her, me, a woman in a green sweater. She drew it. I found it in the kitchen, and I didn't know what to do with it, so I put it in a drawer, and I've been looking at it for weeks, and I don't know how to explain it except that she saw something I wouldn't let myself see. She was 7, and she was smarter than I was. I don't know what that means. I don't believe in signs. I don't, but I believe in my kid. Mia was looking at the drawing. Her jaw was set. A muscle was working in it. Mia, he said, I'm not asking you to give up the job. Her eyes came up. I'm not. I'm not. I know how much work you did to get that. I know what it means to you. If you go, you go. And I will be happy for you because I love you, and that's what loving someone is. But I'm asking you to know that I wanted you to stay. I'm asking you to know that I want a life with you. I'm asking you to know that whatever you decide, you're deciding with all the information this time. Not the version I curated for you, not the fair speech. The whole thing. I love you, and I am afraid of it, and I'm telling you anyway. He stopped. He lowered the drawing. The apartment was very quiet. Mia looked at him for a long time. You know what's funny? She said finally. Her voice was rough. I practiced this conversation too. I've been practicing it for a week. And in my version, you say almost exactly what you just said, and I cry, and I forgive you, and we have a beautiful moment. Okay? I'm not going to do that. His stomach dropped. Okay. I'm not going to do that because a beautiful moment isn't a life, Evan. A beautiful moment is what got us here. A beautiful moment is a coffee shop and a duck pond and you laughing at a picture of my dog. Those were beautiful moments. They were real. They were not enough. You know what would be enough? You doing this tomorrow. You doing this next month. You doing this in a year when I'm having a bad week and I pick a fight with you because I'm tired. That's what I need. Not a speech. Not a grand gesture. I need to know you can keep doing the hard part of this over and over without somebody pointing a plane ticket at you.
Mia,
Because here's the other thing. You're not the only one who's scared. I'm scared too. I have been scared of you since the third coffee. You have a kid. You have a whole life. I walk in, and if this doesn't work, I'm not just losing you, I'm losing her, and I've already started loving her, Evan. I've already started. So don't stand there and act like you're the only one risking something. I'm taking the same risk you are. I just don't get to dress mine up as fairness, because mine doesn't have a moral high ground built into it. He had nothing to say. He had not thought about it that way. He had, in his defense, and it was not much of a defense, not really thought about her side at all. He had been so busy being afraid that he had forgotten she was also afraid. He had been so busy being the tragic single father with the unreliable heart that he had missed the fact that she was also a person with her own unreliable heart, and that she had been handing it to him week after week with the quiet understanding that he might drop it. He had dropped it. "I'm sorry," he said. "I know. I don't know how to prove it to you. I don't have anything except me showing up. That's all I've got. Me and Lily and Kevin, the fish and the hill and the green sweater, and I don't know, Mia, I don't know what else I can Evan. Yeah. Shut up." He shut up. She walked across the room to him, slowly. She took the drawing from his hand. She looked at it again, more carefully this time, her thumb going over the crayon woman in the green sweater, and she did a small laugh through her nose that was mostly not a laugh. "She really drew this," she said. "She really drew it. The sweater is literally my sweater." "I know. That's insane." "I know." She handed it back to him. "Evan." "Yeah. I'm not going to decide anything tonight." His heart fell through the floor. "Okay. I'm not. Stop looking like that. Listen, I'm not going to decide anything tonight because you coming over here and giving me a speech, and I know you said it wasn't a speech, and it wasn't, I'm calling it a speech anyway, does not fix what happened in the restaurant. It doesn't. One good night doesn't undo one bad night. That's not how this works." "Okay, but I'm also not getting on that plane tomorrow." It took him a second to register it. I'm not getting on it. I was going to, Evan. I swear I was. Up until about 15 minutes ago, I was going to. I was going to get on that plane and I was going to start a new life and I was going to miss you every day and I was going to call it a growth experience. And then you showed up on my doorstep with a drawing in your coat and you told me you loved me and you told me you were a coward about it. And I realized I'd rather stay here and fight with you than go to Chicago and be right about you. He couldn't speak. "I'm going to call them Monday morning," she said. "I'm going to tell them I can't take the job. I don't know what happens after that. I don't know if they'll hold it for me later. I don't know if I'll regret it. I don't know if we're going to make it, Evan. I really don't. But I'm going to try because I want to try and because I don't want to be the woman who left because a man couldn't get his mouth to work on the right night." "Mia." "Yeah. I don't deserve that." "Yeah, I know. That's mine to give, though. Not yours to earn." He put his hand over his face for a second. He breathed in, he breathed out. He was not crying. He was doing the thing where he was almost crying and not quite. The thing Lily did, the chin thing, and he realized, standing there, where she had learned it from. He took his hand down. "I want to do this right," he said. "I know. I want to bring Lily into it, properly. I want you to be in her life, Mia. Her life, not just mine. Okay? We'll go slow. We'll go fast if we need to," she said. "We'll go whatever speed it needs to go. I'm done pretending I have a master plan for relationships. My master plan has gotten me exactly one beagle and a lot of therapy. I'm winging it from here." He laughed. It came out as half a sob. She reached up and wiped the corner of his eye with her thumb, rough and fast, like she was annoyed at herself for doing it. "Don't," she said. "Okay? I mean it. No crying. You cry, I cry, and I am too tired to cry tonight, Evan. I have been crying all week and my face looks like a wet sandwich. Your face does not look like a wet sandwich. My face looks like a wet sandwich. Don't argue with a woman about her own face. Okay. They stood there in her apartment, surrounded by boxes she was not going to ship, with the beagle finally quiet in the bedroom, and the smell of the closed bakery coming up through the floor, and she looked at him for a long time, and then she took half a step forward, and she put her forehead against his shoulder, and she did not hug him, exactly. She just rested her head there, like something heavy she had been carrying for a week had finally found a place to set down. He put his arms around her. He held her there. He did not say anything. There was nothing left to say that was more true than this. Mia called Chicago on Monday morning at 9:04. Evan knew because she had texted him the time. She had done it with him on the other end of the phone, on speaker, sitting on the floor of her apartment surrounded by the boxes she was now going to have to unpack. Her voice had been level. She had thanked them. She had apologized for the short notice. She had not asked if the offer could be held, because she had told him the night before that she was done making decisions with the back door open. When she hung up, she sat there for a long moment with the phone in her lap. Okay, she said, mostly to herself. You okay? I will be. Mia, I said I will be. Don't push it. He didn't push it. That was the first lesson, probably. There were others coming, and he didn't know most of them yet, but the first one was already obvious, that he was going to have to get very good, very fast, at not pushing things that didn't need pushing. They told Lily that afternoon. Mia came over at 4. She sat on the couch. Lily climbed up next to her without being invited, which was its own quiet event. And Evan sat on the coffee table across from them, which Lily had been told 100 times not to do, and which she eyed him for, suspiciously, but which she let slide this time because she could feel something in the room. Lil. Yeah. Mia's not going to Chicago. Lily blinked. She's staying here? She's staying here. Lily looked at Mia. Mia nodded. Just once. Lily said, For how long? Evan opened his mouth. He realized he didn't have an answer. He looked at Mia. Mia said, For as long as we're good to each other. Lily nodded slowly, processing, the way she processed things. She did not squeal. She did not throw her arms around Mia's neck. She did not do any of the things a movie would have had her do. She just sat there next to Mia on the couch, and she chewed on the inside of her cheek, and after a full 30 seconds, she said, very practically, Okay. And then, smaller, Are you going to come to my birthday? When's your birthday? March 14th. I wouldn't miss it. Okay. That was the whole conversation. Evan had spent a week preparing for that conversation. He had scripted it in his head. He had imagined a dozen versions of it, some of them weepy, some of them angry, some of them where Lily asked him hard questions he couldn't answer. The actual version lasted less than a minute and ended with his daughter asking Mia if she wanted to meet Kevin the fish, which, yes, she did. He sat on the coffee table and he watched them walk down the hall together. Lily was holding Mia's hand. Neither of them had made a thing of it. He put his face in his hands for a second, not crying, just adjusting. The next few months did not look like a movie either. He was grateful for that, actually. He had spent a long time afraid of his own life looking like a bad version of a story. And it turned out, when he let it, his life mostly looked like a life. Mia did not move in. Not right away. They had agreed, out loud, sitting at her kitchen table the week after the airport that wasn't. They had agreed to go slow for Lily, which was the cover story, and to go slow for themselves, which was the real one. Mia kept her apartment. She came over 2 nights a week, then 3. She brought groceries. She brought once a small succulent in a terracotta pot that she said was for the house, not for you, so don't kill it out of spite. And Evan had put it on the kitchen windowsill where the light was good, and watered it the way she had told him to, and had not killed it. He fought with her twice in the first month. The first fight was about a work thing. He had taken on a project he didn't have time for, and he had gotten snappy with her on a Tuesday night when she asked him a perfectly normal question about dinner, and she had looked at him across the kitchen and said evenly, "That was mean, Evan, and you don't get to be mean to me just because your boss is mean to you." He had said he was sorry. She had said sorry wasn't enough. He had to also not do it again. That had been, in its own way, a bigger gift than the forgiveness. The second fight was worse. He didn't even remember later exactly how it started. Something about his ex-wife, something about a missed call, something about a birthday card that had arrived for Lily 2 weeks late. He had been short with Mia. She had been short back. They had raised their voices in a way they had not raised their voices before, and Lily had appeared in the kitchen doorway in her pajamas with a very specific expression on her face, and they had both stopped mid-sentence, and Mia had said, "Hi, Bug," in a voice that was trying hard, and Lily had said, "It's okay if you're mad at each other, you just have to say sorry after." They had said sorry after. They had said it in front of her, at her request, which had felt ridiculous and also completely correct. And afterward, when Lily was back in bed, Mia had said to Evan quietly, "Your kid's a better adult than either of us." And Evan had said, "I know." That was the thing he kept running into. His kid was a better adult than either of them. His kid had, it turned out, been watching all of this more closely than he'd realized, and had been doing her own math about love and family and whether things counted, and Mia arriving on the hill with the green sweater had been, for Lily, less a surprise than a confirmation. He didn't understand it exactly. He had stopped trying to. Lily's 8th birthday was on a Thursday. Mia came, as promised. She brought a cake she had made herself, which was lopsided, and which she apologized for at length, and which Lily pronounced the best cake she had ever eaten, which was a lie, but a kind one. Mia's sister flew in from Austin for the weekend. Doug came, with his wife, and they got into a debate with Mia's sister about a baseball team that Evan did not follow, and Lily sat on the floor of the living room with her new set of art supplies and quietly drew pictures the entire afternoon. At one point, Evan walked past her, and she held one up and said, "Dad, look." It was the three of them again. The hill, the sweater. Except this time there were 4. Doug was on the far end, slightly too big, labeled Uncle Doug. "He made me put him in," Lily said. "I bet he did." "He said a family is who shows up. I think that's true." Evan had not had a good response to that at the time. He had just crouched down and kissed the top of her head. He had thought about it a lot later. He thought about it, honestly, for weeks. A family is who shows up. He wanted to frame that on a wall somewhere. Mia moved in the following spring. They did not make it a big deal. She brought her boxes over on a Saturday in April. Doug helped. Doug's back hurt for 3 days afterward, which Doug would not shut up about. Francis the Beagle arrived with a suspicious look on his face and spent the first 48 hours glued to Mia's leg, and then decided, in one afternoon, that Lily was his new favorite person on earth, and followed her around the house with the loyal, stupid devotion of a dog who has found his true owner and is rewriting his entire life around the discovery. Lily was thrilled. Kevin the fish did not appear to notice any change, because Kevin the fish did not notice much of anything, because Kevin the fish was, as Evan had long suspected, a mediocre fish. They got married 1.5 years after that. Not fast, not slow. At the right time, which was a time neither of them had circled on a calendar in advance. It was a small thing, 40 people, a backyard, Mia's sister crying too loud during the vows, Doug giving a toast that had 3 good sentences and 10 jokes, and one moment where his voice cracked and he had to look at the ground for a second. Lily was Mia's maid of honor, at her own request, and she walked down the short strip of grass holding Mia's bouquet with a seriousness that killed Evan quietly from the 3rd row. Mia wore her hair down. No clip. He noticed. He didn't say anything. He noticed. Years after that, not a lot of drama. A few. The ordinary kinds. The kinds that don't make good stories, which Evan had come to think was probably the point. A job change for Mia, away from the tech company and toward something steadier. A miscarriage, 2 years in, which they did not talk about much outside of each other, but which he was grateful in the hardest weeks to have someone to not talk about it with. A second daughter, a year after that, named Hazel, who came out screaming and who Lily, by then 10, insisted on holding immediately, and who Lily would go on to be embarrassingly protective of for the next decade. His ex-wife called, eventually, more than she had before. She got better at it, slowly, in a way that surprised him and that he did not entirely trust, but that he decided to stop guarding against. Lily went to visit her in Portland for a week the summer she turned 12. Came back with a tan, a new vocabulary word, and the report that her mother was, "Fine, Dad, she's fine, she's just a person." Evan had looked at his daughter across the kitchen, this person who was almost taller than Mia now, and he had thought, "You are smarter than I have ever been." He had thought, too, "You are better at forgiving people than I am. I should learn from you." He was learning from her, still. He would be, probably, for the rest of his life. No. If anybody had asked Evan Carter, at 32, sitting across from Doug in a diner on a Tuesday afternoon with a cold coffee in front of him, whether he believed in starting over, he would have said no. Flatly, without thinking. He would have said that second chances were things that happened in novels, to better men, men who hadn't already burned through their allotment. He had believed that. He had believed it so deeply that he had rebuilt his whole life around the belief, brick by brick, and called it survival and meant it. What he had not known, and what he sometimes tried to explain to people who asked him about it later, usually badly, usually giving up halfway through, was that the opposite of surviving is not thriving. The opposite of surviving is choosing. Surviving is what you do when you've decided there's nothing left to choose. Choosing is what you do when you finally, reluctantly, admit that there is. He had almost missed it. He thought about that a lot. He had almost stood at his kitchen sink forever, with his hands dripping, looking at a backyard with one scrawny tree. He had almost let Mia get on a plane. He had almost said the speech instead of the truth. The margins on his life had been paper thin, and he had not known it at the time, and he had been saved, largely, by a 7-year-old with green marker on her face and a stubborn woman in a washed-out sweater and a friend named Doug who had refused at several critical junctions to let him off the hook. He did not think love had saved him. He was suspicious of that phrasing. Love hadn't saved him. Love had just been the thing on the other side of the door. He had finally, after 4 years, decided to open. The opening was the part he had done. The love was what was waiting. That was the thing he wanted Lily to understand, and Hazel too, when she was old enough. That you could spend half your life building a fortress and then realize all at once that the fortress was the problem. That being afraid was not the same as being careful. That the people who loved you the best were the ones who would not pretend your fear was a virtue. He sat on the back porch some nights, after the girls were asleep, and he thought about the man he had been at 32, cold coffee and a spreadsheet and a drawer full of batteries and one folded drawing. He did not miss that man. He did not pity him either. He just wished sometimes that he could reach back and tell him, "It's okay. The thing you're scared of isn't going to kill you. The thing that's going to kill you is not doing it." He couldn't reach back, of course. Nobody could. That was the other lesson, and it was one he had made peace with. You never get to save your past self. You only get to be a better version for whoever is standing in front of you next. Mia came out onto the porch one night in late October, in her pajamas, with 2 mugs of tea. She handed him one. She sat down next to him on the step. The tea was predictably too strong. She had never gotten any better at it. He had never asked her to. "What are you thinking about?" she said. "Nothing." "Liar?" "I'm thinking about a hill." She looked at him. "Yeah?" "Yeah." She didn't ask him to explain. He didn't. She leaned her shoulder against his, and they sat there, and the tea got colder, and the dog barked once at something in the yard and then gave up. And upstairs one of the girls turned over in bed, and the house did the small, ticking, breathing thing houses do at night, when the people in them are finally, for a minute, all at rest. He thought about the drawing. He thought about how long he had kept it in the drawer. He thought about the version of himself who had almost let it stay there forever. And he didn't say any of that. He just reached over in the dark and took Mia's hand, and she squeezed his back. And that was the thing, in the end. Not the speech, not the airport run he hadn't made, not the dramatic version of any of it. Just a man who had, one Tuesday afternoon many years ago, decided he would rather be scared with somebody than safe without them. It turned out, he learned slowly, that was most of the work. The rest was just showing up. And he did.